Well, in just a few weeks, we're going to be doing really well, right? As we gather around the table with the carved turkey and the mashed potatoes and gravy and corn and cranberry sauce, you got to have the cranberry sauce. And I like the jellied cranberry sauce out of the can. I know, you guys go, ew. And we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving. It's going to be a wonderful time. How many of you would say that you have a lot to be thankful for? Let me see your hands. All right. I would say it's probably most of us in this room. Good. You have a lot to be thankful for. How many of you would say that then God has truly blessed your lives? Let me see. Okay, probably. Yeah, overabundantly. Good. Awesome. How many of you would say that you would like to be even more blessed? Let me see. Yeah. Okay, good. Good. You're in the right place because that's what we're going to be talking about. Phew. Thought I might have to toss the sermon series out the window. We're starting a brand new series called The Blessed Life. And we're going to be looking today and over the next few weeks about how we can be more blessed. What's that take? What's it look like? And the key to living a blessed life is found in Acts chapter 20. And Paul is talking with some elders from Ephesus, the church in Ephesus. And he reminds them of some words that Jesus spoke. And Jesus said, "It is more blessed to receive than give." Okay, good. You're tracking with me. A few of you are. It is more, let's say it together. It is more blessed to give than to receive. And it's so true. Those of you who are givers, you know what that's like. But for society today, it seems kind of backwards. You know, it seems that we think that in order to be blessed, then you have to get more. You have to get more money and get more stuff. And when I have more, then I feel really blessed. But Jesus turns our thinking upside down, and he tells us that if we really want to be blessed, then we should give more away. Give more money away. Give more stuff away. How many of you are feeling uncomfortable? Man, I came to church this morning. I woke up. I don't know if I'm going to like this message. I hope you do. All right, we'll get into it. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this in your notes. Fill in the blank there. The key to the blessed life is having a heart of generosity. Plain and simple. If you want to have a blessed life, you've got to have a heart of generosity. If you want to be more blessed, you will become more blessed when you become more generous. Now, this concept, it's not a new concept today. It wasn't a new concept in Jesus' day. When Jesus says it's more blessed to give than to receive, it wasn't like, you know. It actually goes way back. Even you can read about it in Deuteronomy. You can read about it in First Chronicles and Psalms and Proverbs. In fact, I gave you a couple of verses here. In Psalm 112 and verse 5, it says, good or blessings will come to him who is what? Generous. Proverbs 11, 24 and 25, it says, one man gives freely. Like to meet that guy, right? But he gains even more. It doesn't make sense. It's like backwards. If I give away everything I have freely, how do I have even more? And he says another one withholds unduly. In other words, another one is stingy, but he comes to poverty. He says a generous man will what? Now, come on. We should be enthusiastic about that. A generous man will what? Yeah, prosper. This is good stuff, right? Oh, man, I'm glad I came to church today. Whew. Now, we have a tendency to live our lives as if everything belongs to me. Don't we? Like, it's mine, and I'm the only one entitled to enjoy what I have. You know? If someone else wants what I have, well, you know what? They've got a job, they make money, they can go out and buy it for themselves. And if they can't afford it, too bad. I got mine, and I'm not going to share it. That's kind of our mentality today. The problem with this kind of attitude, if you're a follower of Jesus, is that everything we have really doesn't belong to us anyway, does it? Remember Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's, and what? Everything in it. It all belongs to God. It's His. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's God's. We're all blessed, I think, in many ways beyond our understanding, beyond our comprehension, with things that we have. Even though we go through bad days, you ever have a bad day? Even though we go through these bad days, even though times get tough, even though we face, some of us, more than our share of challenges and sorrows and troubles, even though these things happen, we all do receive countless blessings. There's a lot going on in our lives that we have to be thankful for. But we tend to get caught up in what's wrong in our lives, don't we, sometimes? Rather than what's going right. But when we really think about it, we've got a lot to be thankful for. We live in decent homes. We have friends and family members. We have good support systems around us. We have a lot to be thankful for. We have freedom to make our own choices. Tuesday morning, November the 8th, make your choice, right? I'm praying for you. Pray for our country. We make our choices. And life is okay. We have a lot to be thankful for. And as a whole, life is good. And not only is it good, but sometimes it can be really great. It can be really great. As followers of Jesus, one of our greatest opportunities to bring additional joy and blessing and abundance to our own lives happens when we are generous in other people's lives. Do I need to say that again? If we want to live abundant, happy lives, then we've got to find a way to be generous to other people in our lives. That's what it comes down to. Remember, to be blessed means to be happy. Happy. Paul speaks about this in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. We know this verse. He says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each man should give what he's decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver, a happy giver, a celebratory giver. This word cheerful describes a person who goes, wow, man, I get to give. I'm happy about this. I get to bless someone else's life because of what I have. Out of the overflow of what God has given me, I can bless someone else's life. And that's awesome. It's a celebration. Generous giving is a celebration. We go, yeah, this is awesome. Do you know in the Old Testament, the Israelites, when they would bring their offerings, most times it was centered around a festival. They were partying. They were like, woohoo, let's bring our cows and our lambs and everything else, and let's bring them before God. And they would have a party and celebrate. Sometimes when we give our offering in here, we go, well, I guess I got $5. Give it. That's not cheerful. No. God wants us to be happy. I'm looking forward to the day when we start giving our offering and everybody goes, woohoo, yeah, I get to give. We should be excited about it. We should be excited that we get to be generous. But maybe we're not being generous. Maybe we're sowing sparingly. I don't know. Down in verse 11, then Paul writes, you will be made rich in every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. Do you want to see a blessed life? Do you want to see a blessed life? You want to live a blessed life? Here's the key. Write this down. 2 words. Be generous. Whoa. Now, Paul, in this passage, in verse 11 especially, he's not just talking about finances, all right? If you limit the blessings of God to finances, you're totally underestimating what God can do in your life. Because it's not all about finances. It's not all about money. Remember, you can't serve both God and money. It just doesn't happen. So if you limit to God to just finances, you're underestimating what God can do. Because I believe God, Paul said it. He said that you will be made rich in every way. Every way. Not just financially, but you can be made rich in your relationships. Your relationships could be a rich blessing in your life. Relationships that where your marriage grows stronger and healthier and better. You could be blessed with healthy living. You could be blessed in so many different ways, more than just financially, that you're able to, because of that, then be generous on every occasion. Not just when you feel like it, not just when it doesn't hurt, but every occasion. And these blessings that God gives us so that we can be rich on every occasion, they're not for our sole purposes of living a secluded life, sitting back and enjoying all these things on our own and hoarding it for ourselves. That's not why these blessings come. It doesn't belong to us anyway. They're given to us so that we can share them with other people on any and every occasion. Ultimately, that God may be glorified, that He would be thanked because of it. Here's what I want to do for the rest of this message is I want to look at 3 mindsets that we can have when it comes to giving. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I was studying this over the last couple of weeks, and I came across some blog articles by a minister named Jensen Franklin. And I stumbled upon these stories, and I thought, wow, this is pretty good illustration. And I thought I should share it. And what it comes down to is 3 different mindsets. He actually had 4, but I don't have a whole lot of time, so I narrowed it down to 3. Perhaps you'll find yourself in one of these mindsets, all right? So let's jump in, and as we jump into these 3 mindsets, let me ask you a question. So here's what it comes down to for me. Knowing that it is more blessed to give than to receive, knowing this, why aren't more people doing it? You ever think about that? Like, why aren't more people generous? It's more blessed to give than to receive. Everybody should be doing it, right? Well, it just doesn't happen. And I think it comes down to that some people just believe they don't have enough. They just don't have enough. They would like to give, but they simply don't give. They don't have enough to be generous in their giving. So Franklin calls this the bag mindset. The bag mindset. And he goes over to the book of Haggai, and I had to make it a little more complex. I had to kind of explain it a little bit because he was kind of like vague about it. But in the book of Haggai, we read about the Israelites who have been released from exile. They've come back home. They're settling in the land. They're building houses, and they're starting to make a name for themselves again. And they're building these houses, and their lifestyle's getting really good. And the problem is, though, they've neglected the most important matter of it all, and that is the rebuilding of the temple. They neglected the temple of God. They just said, you know what, I got to build my house. I got to take care of first things first, me. I got to take care of me first, and then we'll maybe get to God. All right, so God's angry with Israel at this point, and he says this to them in Haggai chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. He says this. This is God speaking. He says, give careful thought to your ways. He says, you've planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. Maybe they were a bunch of teenagers. You eat. Thank you for laughing at that. I appreciate that. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. And then he says this, you earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. Oh, you ever feel like you got the bag mindset? You know how that goes. You make the money, it goes in the bag, and you look in the bag next month and you go, where did it all go? It's got holes in it. I got this bag mindset. I just don't have enough. I don't have enough to be generous. I put money in the bag, and there's more month at the end of the money. You've heard the saying, right? What do? We got a bag mindset. Whatever seems to go in, it just goes right back out. And then maybe when things start looking okay, you're just starting to get ahead, what happens? The car breaks down. The furnace goes. Things get bad, and you got to repair it. There it all goes again. It's like your bag springs a leak. But here's the thing about the bag mindset. Perhaps it comes down to the fact that we've forgotten what's important. Could it be that you've been too focused on what you can get rather than what you can give? Could it be that you've moved Jesus from the center of your life out here somewhere in the periphery, that you just like the Israelites, totally forgot about God. They forgot about the temple, the house of God, and they kind of shoved God aside and focused on their own lives for a while. What happened? Well, they weren't blessed. They weren't being generous. Could it be that you've moved Jesus out of the center of your life? Could it be that you've been too focused on what you can get and hoard and enjoy in seclusion. It's all mine. I'm not sharing it. I want you to think about this. Let's not forget about a man named Judas, who also had a bag mindset. Remember in John chapter 12, verse 6? As keeper of the money bag, Judas used to help himself to what was put into it. You remember Judas is the guy that betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver? Bag mindset. Bag mindset. I just don't have enough to give. All right. Let me give you the second one. The second mindset is this, and this one's a little more exciting, and it's called the basket mindset. The basket mindset, write that in your notes. The person with a basket mindset believes that God is a generous God and that we can trust Him, and He gives us more than enough so that we can bless others. And He will continue to give us more so that we can give more freely. In other words, God fills up my basket so much that it starts to overflow, and because of that, I don't keep it for myself. I start sharing it with people. I start blessing others because of what God has given me. Now, I've been reading through the book of Deuteronomy over the last couple of weeks. Why Deuteronomy? My goodness, it's boring. I love this stuff. Been reading Deuteronomy. I came to chapter 28. In chapter 28, Moses is telling the Israelites, hey guys, follow God, obey Him fully, and things are going to go really well for you. You're going to live a blessed life. All right, so Moses is talking to them in verses 4 through 6. He says, okay, if you fully obey God, if you follow Him wholeheartedly, he says this in verse 4, the fruit of your womb will be blessed, and the crops of your land and the young of your livestock, the calves of your herds and the lambs of your flocks. He says, your basket and your kneading trough will be blessed. It will be blessed when you come in and blessed when you go out. And isn't that awesome? You'll be blessed. God will bless your basket when you finally move Him to the center of your life and you start being generous with what He's given you. And of course, I go over to Luke chapter 6. Remember Luke chapter 6, Jesus talking, Sermon on the Mount, and He says this. He says, give, and it will be given to you. And then He says, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Now, think about what Jesus is saying. Now, in that day, you had two different types of basket collectors on the farm. First of all, you had the day laborer. The day laborer would go out into the farmer's field. They were the hired laborers. They would go out into the farmer's field, and they would collect grain in their baskets. Do you think they filled their baskets all the way to the top so they were overflowing? No, come on. I mean, I watch my teenager work. I know how it goes. The easier, the better, right? So I might fill this basket up half full or three-quarters of the way full. Why? Because now I got to carry this basket over to the storehouse clear across the field. So the day laborers would not fill the baskets clear up because it was just made for harder labor if they did. Now, the second type of people were the poor. The poor were invited by the farmer to come to the barn, to come to the storehouse, and collect the leftovers. The stuff that's spilled over. Now, how do you think they filled their baskets? Get that basket, right? They got the basket, set it on the ground, fill it up with grain, press it down as deep as you can, put some more in, press it, shake it a little bit, get all the air out until what? It's overflowing, right? That's how you would do it if you're poor. And you'd carry that basket home, and it's spilling grain everywhere, and that's just how they did it. Can you imagine? This is the type of God that loves us. He's a God of abundance and generosity, and He fills our baskets so full that they begin to overflow. And again, not so that we can enjoy it and hoard it all to ourselves, but so that we, like the farmer, can share it with others who need it. That's the basket mentality. That's the kind of God that we serve. Remember the boy the disciples found when the crowd was hungry? Remember that guy? Oh, who's got food? Oh, that little boy. Let's take his food, So they did, right? They took his food. He had 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish to feed 5,000 men plus women and children. But what did Jesus do? He took that little boy's generosity and blessed it beyond imagination. How many basketfuls of leftovers did he go home with? 12. The answer is 12. He went home with 12, out of 5 loaves and 2 small fish, the boy goes home with more leftovers than he had in the first place. Isn't that amazing? That's how God works. When we are generous with what he's given us, with a basket mentality, when we're generous with what he's given us, we will live blessed and happy lives. I pray that you're living if you're living with a bag mindset, I pray that God will stretch your faith into this basket mindset. Because when you're faithful with a little, he will give you more. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to go, we have more than we need. We don't need all this stuff lying around. And then you're going to have this generous heart. You're going to remember a message that Jeremy Klein preached on November the 6th, 2016. You're going to say, you know what? Jeremy talked about having a generous heart. You're going to have a generous heart. And you're going to say, we have more than we need. Let's share it with somebody. Let's be generous with other people, right? And you're going to realize that you are more blessed when you give. You're more blessed when you give. And maybe God will open up your heart to give you more than 10%. Maybe God will open your heart to give to the mission in Haiti after a hurricane. Proud of our church. Maybe he'll open your heart to give to a family who can't afford a proper burial for their baby. Proud of our church. He'll open your heart to give to someone who needs it far more than you do. Because it is far more blessed to give than it is to receive. Living in the basket mindset, that's where, oh man. All right, so let me give you the third one. You got the bag mindset, you got the basket mindset. Now there's this third one, and it's the barn mindset. The barn mindset, right? So Moses is talking to the Israelites in Deuteronomy 28, and he says, man, if you fully obey God and you follow God, not only will he bless your baskets, but he's going to do even more. Verse 8, the Lord will send a blessing on your barns and everything you put your hands to. The Lord your God will bless you in the land he's giving you. He will bless your barns. Imagine you start to be faithful with the bag. You start to be faithful with the bag. A little bit here, a little bit there, you're generous. And then you're faithful. God moves you up to the basket, right? You're faithful with what's in the basket and what's overflowing in the basket. You're sharing and being generous, and God's blessing it. Imagine one day when God fills your barns to overflowing. Now, I realize we don't have barns, right? We have barns for our cars. Some of us do, the garage. I realize we don't have barns, but we are very, very blessed. In the Old Testament, we read about a guy named Joseph. Remember Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers? Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and then Joseph ends up in Egypt, and Potiphar, a man named Potiphar, throws him into jail, and he's completely forgotten about, pretty much, for the most part. He's thrown in jail. And then one day, God remembers Joseph, and he raises him up. He raises him up to second in command. Second in command. And Joseph's a pretty smart guy. God uses Joseph later on to save a starving nation from this famine. Why? Because Joseph was smart enough with a full barn of grain to feed the people. And he was able to save a nation because of it. God had used Joseph, who had barns that were overflowing. When you're faithful to God in a similar way, Joseph was very faithful to God throughout this whole ordeal. When he was in jail, when he was sold into slavery, Joseph was very faithful to God, never wavered. And when you're faithful to God in a similar way, guess what God can do? He can use you to bless many other people because your barns will be overflowing. Instead of giving 10%, you might give 20%. Instead of living on the 90%, maybe you live on 10%. Whew, there's a challenge, huh, honey? Ready to retire? But you never know, because you're living in the barn mindset. God is blessing you so much because you are being generous. It all comes down to this. Are you being generous with what God has given you? Are you being stingy? Are you living in a scarcity mindset? Are you sowing sparingly? Or are you saying, you know what, God, it's not mine anyway. I'm going to be generous with what you've given me. You've blessed my life. I want to bless somebody else's life. It all comes from a generous heart. So here's the question. God wants to know how much he can bless you with. How much can God bless you with? Are you going to be a bag person? A person that never has enough, got to hold on to it? Are you going to be a basket person? Someone who lets the overflow in that basket be a blessing to others? Or could you be a barn person? I love that one. Could you be a barn person where you're someone who realizes, you know what, this stuff isn't for me anyway. It's all God's, and I'm going to give generously. God wants to know how much he can bless you with. In Luke chapter 16, Jesus says this: whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Then he says, whoever's dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you've not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who's going to trust you with true riches? Are you being generous, or are you holding back? You're being stingy. I want to close with a proverb, a parable that Jesus told about a wealthy guy from Luke chapter 12. And he says this to the people standing around. He says, the ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. And God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? And then Jesus says this: this is how it's going to be with anyone who stores up things for himself but is not rich toward God. Wow. Here's this guy. Here's this guy who had barn blessings, but he had a bag mindset. He had barn blessings, but he had this bag mentality. It's all mine, and I got to keep it in the bag and not share it with anybody else. It's mine. I'm going to be stingy with it. He wasn't living a blessed life. I wonder how many of us have the same mentality. We don't have barns. I get that. But when you look at your life compared to most of the people around the world, half the people around the world live on $2 a day. When you look at your world compared to that, man, you are more blessed than most people. You have barn blessings right here in the United States. Man, I got stuff in the house I don't even know it's there. I have barn blessings, and it's just overflowing. What do I do with it? I don't know. Perhaps the reason that we're not more blessed, more happy, is that we still believe that it's more blessed to receive than it is to give. I don't want to live that way. I think for me and my family, as far as we go, we truly believe that what God has given us, He's given us to be a blessing to other people. Plain and simple. What has God given you that can be a blessing in other people's lives? How can you be a blessing so that God can make you richer in every way, and that you can be generous on every occasion? The more we give, the more we're blessed. And I believe God wants to bless your life. No doubt about it. He wants to bless you and give you a happy life. The key to a blessed life is a heart of generosity. Are you generous? It is more blessed to give than it is to receive.